to stop them. Welcome to the Avengers.
You got gifts, Parker. The world needs that.
I've got this.
Hi everyone, we hope you enjoying our videos. Today we will talk about insane ending of new Spider-Man Far From Home movie, all reviews pointing to this being the best Spider-Man movie of all time. We are not intended to ruin anybody's movie experience, so if you know this about yourself, if you're highly susceptible to expectations, or if this is gonna ruin your Spider-Man Far From Home experience. If you want to see the movie fresh to the ideas that the directors and writers have in store for you, which also begs the question as to why you clicked on this in the first place, but either way you've been warned at this point. Also remember to take these spoilers and leaks of any kind with a grain of salt. They're non-confirmable, and even though the movie has been shown to the public at this point doesn't mean this person actually saw it. Now this bot leak follows the normal narrative that we've already built out of the trailers and all of the plot leaks that have come before. Because you guys have heard it a million times, we already know the basic gist of what's gonna take place in Spider-Man Far From Home, and for the first 2/3 to 3/4 of this plot leak nothing is different. Then the plot leak goes on to say that Spider-Man will travel back to New York with Mysterio and S.H.I.E.L.D. after they think that they've defeated the Elementals for good, and when they get back they'll encounter two new villains that have not been talked about up until now. Now this happens to coincide with a rumor that there is a secret villain in Spider-Man Far From Home, and a lot of people have guessed Electro up until now, but this says during the encounter with these two villains Spider-Man will soon decipher that Mysterio is not on his side. Even though Mysterio continues to fight by Peter Parker, he realizes that he's not actually his ally and may in fact be in cahoots with the two villains. They're fighting. It continues to say that during the battle in the streets of New York, Peter is now battling all three of the villains, and they spill into the lobby of a building that is still heavily under construction. We realize as the audience that this is still the Avengers Tower, even though the building doesn't have a new name. The equipment inside reads Oscorp. Spider Sense goes off for Peter, but it's too late as he turns around to confront Mysterio. He asks, "Why I trusted you." Mysterio says, "I'm really sorry, Peter, but it had to be done." It's at that point that the two other villains activate some sort of equipment, and from a bird's eye view we see an electronic blast. Then it pans back into the lobby and the three villains and Spider-Man are nowhere to be found. The last shots of Peter Parker's face in a close-up pulling back as he wakes up looking very confused. As he stands up and looks around, the camera comes from behind him showing a wasteland that is completely desolate and barren. He looks up at the sky and scratches his head, and we can clearly see three distinct moons. It cuts to black and says Spider-Man will return. Now there's a couple of things that are amazing about this, pun intended, and we are not sure if this plot leak is real or not. It was really poorly written, that's why I didn't read a majority of it. Also it didn't have a lot new to say. Like I said, the first 2/3 or 3/4 read exactly like if you had just watched all the trailers and then explained what was going to happen, but this end part is completely nuts. And if this is some sort of multiverse reversal, if that equipment that they activated actually transported Peter Parker to the multiverse, a different dimension, or even perhaps Mysterio's home Earth, if this is true, they sort of okey-doke him and stranded him sort of like a Star Trek back on his destroyed planet. That would not only be amazing, but it would fully make sense given the name of this Spider-Man movie, Far From Home. A lot of people might have thought that him being in Europe and or being without Tony would be the absence of his home, but I think it might be a little deeper than that. And if they're gonna strand him in the multiverse, this is gonna take Spider-Man to a whole new place. They make sure to call out even during the trailers. The Spider-Man's been to space. At this point Marvel Studios really doubled down. They got the Spider-Man property and immediately put him in space, something that had never been done before. It would be awesome if they took it a step further and put them in the multiverse. Now of course this is mostly my theory working on the back of if this could be true, and there's no way of confirming this, but if it is, you would really have to think that Sony was hard at work trying to figure out how they're gonna cross Tom Holland back into their multiverse or Venomverse rather, that now has Morbius and Tom Hardy's Venom, and this would be the perfect way to do that, especially if Marvel's willing to play ball in order to finish their Sinister Six trilogy in Marvel Studios MCU rather than having a cross back over to Sony. And we think Kevin Feige has loosened up quite a bit, that they were able to accomplish what they did with the Infinity Saga and the first 3 phases. Just recently he said in an interview that Spider-Man crossing over with Tom Hardy's Venom was likely but up to Sony, and that's something incredible and a departure from anything you'd think he'd ever hear Kevin Feige say. But guys, let me know what you think in the comments about the idea that Spider-Man Far From Home may land him in the multiverse, and what you think of this may mean for Spider-Man 3 if they're not gonna have him on Earth to finish the Sinister Six, or if he'll simply come back over in another movie. I've also got my thoughts about the fact that they would battle in New York, something that's been done so many times. So that all stay tuned with us so you will never miss single one. I'm the Mun from Movie Clicks.